The smell of new plastic mixing with floor polish, that distinctive creak of wooden floorboards as you approached the airfix section, and the sound of a model railway running overhead while you agonised over spending 2 weeks' pocket money. If you remember standing in Gamages' maze-like corridors or clutching your white Redgates bag like a badge of honour, then you'll understand why these 5 legendary British toy shops meant more than just retail. While researching British retail archives, I stumbled across something that completely changed my understanding of what we lost when Toys R Us arrived in 1985. It wasn't just shops that vanished, it was an entire model of childhood itself. Number 5. Gamleys, the community toy shop. The name Gamleys was created in 1919 by combining Gamages and Hamleys, which you could never get away with today. Founder Bill Lord understood something profound. No matter what the situation, parents will always find money for toys. For 89 years he was right. Imperial Arcade in Brighton, 3 floors of perfectly organised chaos. Subbuteo on the middle floor, where customers spent fortunes in the late 70s. The basement with Airfix models and that distinctive smell of polystyrene and glue. A 1970 deputy manager ordered 200 Saturn V rocket kits after the moon landing. Directors worried about storage, all sold in 6 weeks. The wooden bear mascot in the Hove branch stood next to the Hornby trains, becoming such a fixture that people mentioned it decades later. But what made Gamleys special wasn't the stock, it was the people. Mr. Farmer at Hove, Mr. Jenner at head office, Mr. Davies at Littlehampton. They knew every regular customer's name, what their kids liked, what they could afford. When money was tight, they'd quietly mention the damaged box section round the back. Meeting Darth Vader when Return of the Jedi came out. Being nervous in the queue, getting that signed photo you definitely lost, but definitely remember. When 6pence a week was your pocket money, Gamleys seemed impossible. If your parents paid 5 bob for a toy, they were skint for the rest of the week. But you still went in, gawping at toys you couldn't possibly afford. The 2008 closure marked the end of 89 years. Bexhill branch manager David Pickett wore his old Gamleys tie with teddy bear logo on the final day. Staff member Flo Owen, who'd worked there 20 years, said she might cry. If she drank, she'd have a stiff drink. But it would be Horlicks instead. Whole towns lost their childhood centres. Number 4. Beatties, the model railway paradise. Colonel Beattie had what staff described as a vitriolic hatred of Hornby Dublo. Get rid of that rubbish and buy proper trains, he'd tell customers. This wasn't customer service, this was passionate expertise. From 2 shops on Winchmore Hill Road to 60 stores at peak, Beatties became synonymous with serious modelling. Those yellow carrier bags with Tamiya branding meant you'd had a good day. The TV screens playing RC car videos on loop. That voiceover people can still hear decades later. Grasshoppers, frogs, hornets in glass cases, all impossibly expensive, all absolutely essential to own. The Saturday ritual was universal. How my face altered when we finally got to Beatties after being dragged around town. Hours in the Holborn branch, watching railways running round the ceiling, the Leeds store with stairs so steep and narrow that meeting someone coming down became a negotiation. But it was worth getting up there. Even when pocket money didn't stretch, just gazing at the Hornby boxes was reward enough. The Beatties Club membership came with a guarantee. However high the prices, produce a railway modeller magazine and they'd match any advertised price. Staff would charge £20 to build your RC car kit properly. Saturday workers got half price on everything. One remembered coming home with all the new cars, having no wages at month's end. Here's where Beatties made their fatal error. Late 90s, they tried breaking into video games. The 1999 catalogue had 4 pages of the very products that killed them. They played down the serious modelling that made them special. March 2001, administration. Over 100 jobs lost immediately. When ModelZone took over, then failed in 2013, high street specialist model retailing died completely. Number 3, Redgates, Sheffield, Yorkshire Disneyland. Yorkshire Disneyland, they called it. Britain's best toy shop outside London. If you grew up in Sheffield between 1857 and 1988, Redgates was childhood itself. 5 floors where children were actually encouraged to play before buying. A table full of Lego you could build with. Staff demonstrating everything. This revolutionary approach created magic. The white bags with red barred gates were badges of pride. Artist Pete McKee captured it perfectly. Standing there, sweating, in anxious panic about spending pocket money, The quandary could last hours before finally deciding and heading to the bus queue. Still an agonizing half-hour ride home before playing with your new purchase. The layout was strategic psychology. Star Wars figures on the left immediately as you entered. Action Man dominated the right, creating a beeline destination. The basement had Subuteo, though everyone knew GT Sports was cheaper. A model railway ran overhead on suspended tracks. That constant motion created perpetual wonder, making Redgates feel alive. Saturday mornings meant spending your 2p bus fare to get into town. Angela Spooner went every weekend with her dad. Her mum would let her run from the corner of the moor down to the windows, always heading for the corgi and dinky cars. This running toward Redgates moment captures pure childhood excitement. The 129-year family ownership created generational loyalty. Founded by Edwin Redgate in 1857, survived the Sheffield Blitz, rebuilt multiple times. When Hamleys opened nearby in 1987, both shops died within a year. The irony was bitter. Hamleys hit Redgates hard, then cleared off back to London once the damage was done. 30 years later, Sheffield still mourns. In 2020, a memorial plaque was finally installed. Tracy Wybrow's memory captures the impact, queuing from early hours for Cabbage Patch dolls when first out. Being interviewed by The Star. These weren't shopping trips, they were events that defined Sheffield childhoods. Number 2, Gamages, the Holborn labyrinth. Gamages at 118 to 126. Holborn was literally cobbled together from multiple buildings. Makeshift knock-throughs, tunnel-like passages, constant steps compensating for different floor levels. This architectural chaos became the magic. Navigating the Warren was like a maze, but the experience added to exploration, especially for children heading to the toy department. The layout meant encountering anything. Ground floor hardware with complete motor cars you could purchase. A sports department more like an armoury with shotguns and hunting knives. A zoological department with actual animals in the basement. The restaurant, barber shop, even a perfumery with a real blue-rinsed Mrs. Slocum making staff recognise every Are You Being Served character. The Christmas Railway by Bertram Otto received thousands of visitors from October to January. Jim Corbett operated 2 control wheels, one adjusted train speed linked to commentary. If queues got long, they sped everything up. The other controlled lighting. When the commentary reached nightlife beginning, dimming house lights made train lights suddenly brilliant, always caused oohs and ahs. The Father Christmas ride took you to the North Pole in minutes. Children packed into a magic sleigh. Jim Corbett drove it, watching snowy countryside fly past. An ultraviolet lamp gave everything magical glow. But one thing I was never able to work out, he said, was how I got to the North Pole and back so quickly. The conjuring department, where Will Goldston demonstrated tricks alongside Houdini. The toy department that passionate visitors described as superior even to Hamleys. When Ten Bob bought lots of Meccano, Gamages made quality accessible to working-class Holborn families. The 1972 closure left absolutely no trace. The family board accepted a property developer's offer. By 2009, the site housed W.H. Smith, with offices above. One person still visits toy departments each Christmas, wandering to the grotto, trying to catch glimpses of something 50 years gone. Number 1. Hamleys, the Regent Street institution. Hamleys occupied 200 Regent Street from 1881 to 1981, before moving to 188 to 196. For 70s and 80s, children walking through those doors meant entering what one visitor called a mind-blowing experience. 6 floors where model trains circled the central staircase. That model railway running around the staircase, not boring escalators that came later, but a working layout, mesmerising children racing up and down watching trains pass. Floors organised with British brands, Airfix, Hornby, trains in glass cases, Britain's toy soldiers, Meccano, Scalextric. Brightly coloured stacks of everything imaginable. What I didn't realise was Hamleys' wartime resilience. Survived 5 bombings, staff wearing tin hats, serving customers at the entrance while running inside for toys. This became Hamleys' identity, earning royal warrants from Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth II. The Christmas grotto queue stretched 200 yards down Regent Street. The 1970 catalogue revealed era treasures. Mach 10 rockets, Johnny 7 guns, becoming well-thumbed and sellotaped as children marked wishes for weeks. When 2 shillings bought an Airfix kit representing a week's pocket money, every purchase carried weight. Star Wars figures left, Action Man right, Doctor Who everywhere. Dalek mania struck 1964 to 65. When Star Wars arrived in 1977 to 78, one child remembered their dad working on the redesign, taking them weekends, buying figures if lucky, all of which, thankfully, I've kept. But here's what's fascinating. When Toys R Us arrived, September 1985, the contrast was stark. Warehouse retail versus Hamleys theatre. Competition actually protected Hamleys by clarifying its position. Parents visited Toys R Us for practical shopping, but took children to Hamleys for the experience. Staff demonstrations, red and white uniforms, discovery across 6 floors, the status of carrying a Hamleys bag home. Hamleys survived by adapting, but something essential was lost. The model railways and wooden floors became escalators and electronics. These 5 shops were the infrastructure of British childhood. Hamleys with Christmas grottos requiring military planning, Gamages where you'd stumble from toys to animals to magic, Redgates where children could play before buying, Beatties turning hobbies into lifelong passions, Gamleys with 89 years of community connection. What disappeared wasn't just shops, but childhood itself. The 2-penny bus fare you'd save by walking for more toy money. 6pence weekly pocket money making 2 shillings feel like fortune. Agonizing decisions lasting hours because every purchase represented weeks of saving. I always thought this was just nostalgia, but research reveals something deeper. These shops taught patience through saving, decision-making when you could afford one thing, value when every purchase mattered, community when staff knew your family, discovery when you'd stumble into unexpected departments. Saturday mornings weren't just shopping, but intergenerational bonding. Dad taking you weekly, Mum letting you run ahead to windows. These were traditions connecting families across decades. Staff demonstrating toys, overhead railways creating wonder, permission to browse without pressure, glass cabinets turning toys into treasures. Modern shopping is convenient, cheaper, with infinite selection. But our kids will never know anticipation of waiting weeks, satisfaction of finally holding something, remembering exactly where and when you bought it. They'll never understand why we remember Gamages' ultraviolet lamp, or Jim Corbett speeding up trains for queues. We remember Pete McKee sweating over pocket money, Tracy Wybrow queuing for Cabbage Patch dolls, meeting Darth Vader, the steep stairs at Beatties Leeds, the wooden bear by Hornby trains, white Redgates bags, yellow Beatties bags carried like badges of honour home. Yeah, let's be honest, half the toys were overpriced, queues were ridiculous, but inconveniences made it special. Effort made reward meaningful. When these shops closed, Britain lost more than retail. Gamages left no trace. Redgates fought 30 years for a plaque. Beatties' knowledge scattered. Gamleys' staff crying. Towns left without toy shops entirely. Some things, once lost, can't be recovered. But remembering them properly, honouring what they represented, preserves something essential. Understanding value isn't just price. Expertise matters more than selection. Community isn't proximity. Childhood wonder, properly cultivated, shapes entire lives. These weren't just 5 shops that peaked. This was British childhood at its peak. Before warehouse stores, before Amazon, before instant everything. When anticipation was half the pleasure and earning made things precious. When toy shops were cathedrals and Saturday mornings sacred. Next time you spot an old price tag, faded receipt, or beaten toy with shop sticker, remember, these aren't artifacts. They're evidence of a Britain that understood something we've forgotten. That the best toy shops didn't just sell toys, they sold dreams. And for a few magical decades, every British child could afford one.